Hello everyone, I'm Lexi, and today, or night, or whatever time you're watching this, I'm drawing Aurora as a cleric from the nature domain. Now, this time I'm gonna do things a little bit different. I hope you like it, however. Now, if you've been watching me for a bit, you all would know how I draw, or something like that. Line arts, coloring, shading, and then highlighting. And I don't want to repeat myself over and over, like, I colored this, I drew this, and did it like this, same old, rinse and repeat. So this time I found some good TTRPG, tabletop role-playing games, horror stories. Stuff like bad players, bad DMs, bad both, good game, all that kind of jazz. I personally think it would be cool and fun to listen to. So strap in, grab some popcorn, or draw as well, whatever you want, as I tell you some TTRPG horror stories. Just telling you now, there might be some slight bad language and bad topics discussed, so if you're one of my younger viewers, please either click off this video or watch with caution. Anywho, let's begin. First story, really cool homebrew campaign and system is almost ruined by a racist misogynist. Prologue, not necessary for this story. Okay, so a bit of background. I love D&D, but don't really play on the regular, mostly because of my bad luck with dice rolls. I know that luck doesn't pick sides, but when you spend a week on a character that you're super invested in, only to miss an attack roll, a dex check, and a death save in a row, and be turned into chunky salsa just 2 hours into a 4-hour session, it's incredibly demoralizing. And this happens to me all the time. My friend at the time, who is more like a brother to me now, really wanted me to join his table again. I told him how I just didn't feel like putting so much effort into something that really upsets me, even if the table, group, and roleplay was really good. So he told me that he was building a new homebrew campaign and a custom system specifically for people like me. Basically, it works like this. All characters have the same basic stats: strength, speed, dex, wisdom, charisma, etc. The maximum for all of these stats is 3, representing low, normal, and high. Dice are scaled back to d10s. 1, crit fail. 2 to 3, fail. 4 to 6, not successful but not failing. 7 to 9, success. 10, crit success. You get a +1 modifier only if your character is adept in said action or skill, or if your roleplay was amazing at describing said action. So the max you could get at anything was a +2. So all actions are your base stat plus D minus 10 plus 1, or a +2 modifier for adeptness and roleplay. Falling in line with this new system was more action and roleplay focused rather than class or statistics focused. He said the other campaign was a multiverse event where characters were summoned by some random omnipotence being, Rob, and had to fight the champions of evil, all of which were DM NPCs. Dungeon Master non-player characters, to preserve the peace of reality, and as a result we could roleplay whatever we wanted, any kind of character or class from any piece of fiction, or even make up your own. Enemies would also be picked by DM across various media and given whatever stats seemed fair and necessary. Again, this system was primarily built for fun, not for the challenge. Now, I wanted to be a Jedi, but was nervous, because if you read Star Wars novels, Jedi can get ridiculously overpowered. He told me it was fine, and that if I wanted, I could just restrict my powers to whatever Force abilities are shown in the films. This way, if someone complains or is curious about it, we could just show them, since the films are the most accessible form of media for Star Wars. The system was not only tailored by roleplay-heavy people who struggled with the complexity of D&D rules or with terrible dice rolls, like yours truly, but also to introduce friends to new fiction that they wouldn't otherwise have known about. Now, with all that said, the window for failure was so low and the campaign was so unconventional that I debated whether or not it even counted as D&D, but it was too awesome to pass up. To preserve fairness and avoid ridiculous power imbalance even further, he said that on your character sheet you must list every ability or power your character has access to, max 10, and also introduced the star equalization rule. So if you want to be a space marine from 40k, you can! Your bolter just won't move at hypersonic speeds, and you don't have nanosecond reaction times. If you wanted to be a Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z, you can. You'll just be destroying giant boulders with your energy attacks rather than planets. Story begins. Session 0. The story took place about 3 years ago and we're all early to mid-20s. I went to Jay's house and there was 6 of us in total. Names have been changed, blah blah blah. Myself, 20s, a Jedi Knight that was just traveling the galaxy named Zan Typhos. My friend, Jay, DM, Millie, the girl who went to our college, played a homebrew orc girl from a Wakanda-esque planet where orcs are the dominant species, dope-ass Magitech and all, named Kali. Tyler, a fit guy that my buddy knew from work, playing a Jonin ninja from Naruto's village hidden in the clouds, specializing in lightning and genjutsu named Koga. Allison, Tyler's girlfriend, playing a succubi character in the vein of Morrigan from Darkstalkers, who allowed herself to be summoned because her homeworld was too boring. Named simply Love, L-U-V. And Max, oh god, Max, a homebrew technopath who calls himself a no-sapien from a post-apocalyptic world where humans must purify themselves in order to survive under the planet's harsh conditions, named Terrell. He went into exuberant detail on his character's backstory, the mechanics of his powers, and how he's a bigger role in all of this than the rest of us. Didn't quite feel like main character syndrome, but it felt condescending nonetheless. He was the only real homebrew since Kali was, at her core, a run-of-the-mill orc who had vibranium weapons essentially. So we begin by introducing ourselves and our characters, backstories, etc. Max almost immediately seemed dismissive and not at all interested in what the others were saying. He openly called Tyler's character Koga, the weeb one, Allison's character Love, delicious. Like, dude. Talk about lacking self-awareness. Also, we're playing D&D. You're not standing on much of a high ground over weebs, man. When it was Max's turn, he took a solid 30 minutes. We were all listening politely, but had to occasionally nudge him to speed it up. He would simply grimace and say, "I'm almost done." Takes 10 more minutes. I went last, but as soon as I said I was a Jedi, I got resounding, "Wow, cool man," in dead monotone from Max. Like, am I crazy, or was he sabotaging himself on purpose? Did he have a vendetta against Star Wars? I thought nothing of it, and we moved along. Session 1. When we finally start, we are told by Rob that we have to split up into 2 teams. One team of 2 to go find a talisman on another planet, and the other team of 3 to go battle the first champion of evil. Zahn opted to go with Kali to a rural jungle planet. All goes well, and we have interesting banter along the way. Now, I knew Millie beforehand, and she's a nice person, so our characters' chemistry just clicked. Eventually, we have our first fight with a Blitz demon from Devil May Cry. And because Jedi aren't too physically imposing, at least in the films, I thought it'd be fair to give Zahn a 1 in all physical stats, but could amp with the Force to make it a 2. This would count as my adeptness modifier. I was thrown down and Kali smashed said monster aside thanks to her natural 3 in strength. My character was grateful, but Max, of course, had to say, "Come on man, you need to be saving her ass." I was sitting next to him at the table, so only I heard it, but I was still boggled by the seemingly blatant sexism. The Blitz shot a bolt of lightning, which Zahn caught with his palm and redirected it back, causing the monster to explode. What? Jedi can do that? We were kind of taken aback for a moment when Tyler spoke up before I did. Yeah, they can. I wasn't sure if I was more surprised by Tyler leaping to my defense and with evidence on Max's brazen, confident ignorance. Either way, Max just sort of slumped into his chair with a huff. Okay then. Zahn and Kali find the talisman and gain a little more respect for each other after the battle. I could see that my buddy DM was setting up a romance between them, and Millie and I dug it, so it was cool. We swamp over to the other party afterwards, and they battle a character named August from Asura's Wrath. I didn't play the game, but oh boy, am I thankful for that stat equalization rule. During the fight, Tyler and Allison do awesome combo attacks, like using Koga's lightning to amplify Love's magic missiles. It was cool to see the characters act in sync with one another. Meanwhile, Max's character, Terrell, just went to hit the thing till it dies route. I couldn't help but feel ticked off. The whole system is specifically built so you can let your imagination run wild with little concern for things like permadeath. So why are you wasting it on a bland approach to combat? and he was a technopath. Use technopathy. Nope, just super strength punches and kicks. The battle was won, and we called it a session. After that, I talked to my buddy and asked if Max was always this abrasive. He told me that Max actually rarely plays, and he never said why. Regardless, I didn't like his attitude, and it made the other players uncomfortable as well. Session 2. So before we pick up from our last session, I had exchanged texts with Millie telling me that she was sorry if Max was giving me a hard time. He's not normally like that, and he might just be going through something. I didn't like his behavior, but I understood. I've been there before. So I let bygones be bygones and looked forward to the next session. In all honesty, Max wasn't the stereotypical that guy. He was actually well-groomed, clean, and even I didn't complain about his character's overly long story. The story he gave was still quite interesting. It's just the small things that were getting to me. As we start session 2, Kali and Zahn are the ones who have to fight the next evil champion. We traveled to a junk waste planet and engaged with a polymorph that I didn't think was from any series in particular. What was cool was what it did. DM. Koga, Love, Terrell, hand me your sheets. Tyler, oh, it's on now. Allie? Oh, so this is the PvP? Max? What? Facepalm. Me. It's a polymorph. It's gonna copy your characters and make us fight them. Max? Well, that's kinda dumb. What could have been something more interesting? I could tell my friend Jay was somewhat hurt by this. It's a really cool idea to see how our characters' abilities interact on the offensive whilst not forcing actual PvP. Max is just sitting here belittling the whole thing. Well, I think it's dope, Tyler interjected, and the rest of us lauded Jay's idea. Max just sulked. Again. He turned over a sheet to Jay. Fight starts, and it's pretty rad. Kali struggles against Love's tendrils, only to fold them over and use them to throw the morph into a cliffside. The creature morphs again into Kaga and uses shadow clones, only for Zahn to detect the real one via force sense and skewer the creature with his lightsaber. It screeches before turning into Terrell and began summoning giant hordes of junk and scrap metal. It began to fold around him into a scrappy, 30-foot tall junk mecha. Max, you can't do that. DM, what? I haven't used that ability yet, so there's no way it could copy it, he said with just a ridiculous amount of cockiness, like he was outsmarting the system. Well, it's magic. Polymorph, so it can. It's not a big deal. Whatever you say, boss. I'm just not into when DMs cheat, okay? The lion, the witch, and the audacity of this Tyler again comes to the defense. Dude, that's not cool. We're just having fun. Why are you getting so mad about it? Max just shrugged, saying something about how he didn't think it was fair. Okay, so... At first he thought it was a weak boss. Now he criticizes it for its level of power. Whatever. The fight concludes with Zahn being like a baseball to Kali's super strength, slicing the behemoth in two, ending the fight. Kali is worried about Zahn, who is injured, and they take shelter in a cove. Once there, they converse some more about life, the Force, her orc religion, their overlap, and love. Max was relatively silent this time around checking his phone, laughing occasionally at a gif or something classy. We turn over to the party of 3 and they need to retrieve another talisman that was in the possession of the next champion, Necromancer in another dimension. On their way, they decide to rest on the asteroid and start a camp and at some point, Terrell smacks Love's ass as she's walking away saying, "There's more where that came from, sweetie pie." Now, he's in character here, but that didn't make it any less weird. Especially considering that Allie and Tyler were together IRL. Just add to the pile of just what the Max moments. They encounter the champion, who summons a space dragon with a talisman lodged in between its teeth. It was a pretty standard affair. There were several moments where Love either gets hurt close to Terrell or lands a hit when we're told by Max that Terrell would exclaim, "Don't worry babe, I got this," or "I ogled her curvy body, giving me immense motivation," and other things to that effect. Again, classy. Boss is dead, MacGuffin retrieved, session 2, over. We made a separate group chat without Max in it. We had to do something. He was literally destroying all the fun, but anytime he interacted, it was either completely juvenile or just ran contrarian to the campaign or players. It was just annoying. Jay talked to him and all he got was, "Dude, I'm loving it, so I don't see what your guys' problem is." I thought it was just for fun, right? It's not that serious. Like, yeah, it's not that serious in a critical way, but it was serious in a role-playing way. Session 5. After a small time skip where not much happens, MacGuffins, boss battles, and a lot of romance, all of which Max replaced his vocal criticism in exchange for silence, with a particular sneer for the romance bits. Today, I would find out why. So the band gets back together and arrives on a utopia planet where the cities are lined with marble and vibrant gold. At a certain point, we all choose to turn in for the night to rest up for the final boss tomorrow. In the dead of night, Kali comes to Zahn's room to confess her forbidden feelings since it was somewhat against both their cultures to be with someone. For the orc culture, it was customary to wed another orc, and Jedi aren't supposed to marry, period. They have a heart-to-heart and make love. It was tasteful, you know, not exaggerated descriptions of sex, just the dialogue of two people who love each other. They disrobe and the scene just fades out. Before anything happens next, Max immediately spat out, "Oh, what the f*** is this?" We just all looked at him. "What was what?" I asked curiously. "The whole interspecies thing, you know, dude. I'm out." He gathered his things and left. We were all dumbfounded. What just happened? Now, I never noticed this until just then because it didn't really matter to me, but all of us at the table were white, and Millie's orc was the only non-white character. We ended the session early to gather ourselves after the outburst. It was just so surreal that we didn't know how to react. Later, we received a crap ton of texts in the group chat saying how we were race trainers and I'm not saying that word, ninja lovers. So, as it turns out, he didn't have some underlying problems going on to explain why he rarely played. He just didn't want to play with some of our other friends who were of color. He didn't dislike romance. He hated race mixing. Oh, wow. He was quickly kicked out officially from the game, our friend group, and the like. We would later finish the campaign and it was super fun. I still talk to them and we play regularly on Discord. Tyler and Ali are engaged and Millie is still going to college. So remember kids, don't be racist, don't be misogynistic, it's bad for your health. TLDR? Some guy we thought was going through problems was actually a racist and a misogynist who hated interracial romance. What a guy. Our second story, Substitute DM ruins game night for autistic players. Firstly, a bit of background. I am a mental health professional. I work largely with people on the spectrum. This event in no way characterizes even a small minority of people on the spectrum and should not be treated as such. This is about 4 players who happen to be ASD in varying ways. I run a weekly D&D session for these players at their local day center. I am not linked to them professionally, I do this in my free time. My work background merely helps me in catering to their needs. These players have what is sometimes referred to as special interests in D&D. They all live together in a 24-hour operated secure care home. Game nights is one of the rare nights they get to come and enjoy their special interests. The game I run for them is highly specialized to suit what they want from the game. They don't see D&D as a story to be resolved, they see it as a puzzle to be solved. They aren't interested in lore, characters, backstories, heroes, or villains. It's a pure mathematical exercise for them. I lay out a puzzle dungeon, they move their pieces. I move mine, they attack, I attack, we do the math. If they win, they get points, gold, to spend on better weapons, armor, and potions. Many games' rules are simplified or taken out altogether. If you ask them to describe a goblin, they would say 7 HP, AC 15, 1d6 plus 2 damage. If you said what would you call a small green-skinned, big-eared humanoid wielding a short sword, they would have no idea, most likely. To them, D&D is basically just chess with dice. The rules are consistent and flexible and logical, and they absolutely love it. Honestly, the joy of these guys doing the things they love is really something to cherish. One week, I wasn't able to come to game night due to a work commitment. A person who works at the day center, and therefore should know these players far better than me, he sees them every day, offered to fill for me. I leave all the game notes, boards, and dice for that game at the center. He said he DM'd before and would have no trouble running the game for them. I reiterated to him the importance of simply following the session I had laid out for the game, so it should have been fine, right? Oh, how very wrong I was. In his infinite wisdom, he apparently decided that, "This isn't real D&D, I'll give them real D&D." This is an exact quote according to one of the carers with the players. First, he tried to get them to write backstories for the characters. They don't do this, they just refer to the characters as my person or my piece or simply their own name. This for them is already enough to induce mild anxiety in some of them. He then proceeds to add flavor to the cave scenario by rattling off a random plot hook. One of the players says, "Can we start the puzzle now?" He responds, "It's not a puzzle, it's a story. Don't any of you want to know why you're in the cave?" One of the players, visibly frustrated, stammers, "Because the cave is part of the puzzle. Can we play the puzzle now?" By now, 20 minutes in and not getting what they need, two of the players are shaking with frustration. DM finally notices this and starts the scenario. You are in a cave underneath a lake. There are several small cracks in the ceiling and small drips of water coming through it. Not what I had written, I had simply put cave, height and ceiling 20 feet, no mention of a lake. The players, for them completely natural, disregard any mention of the lake and the cracked ceiling. Battle commences, wizard class player casts fireball, which is what he always does against a group of 3 or more enemies, near each other, but away from the party. He knows exactly what it does and what to expect, namely that at least one enemy piece is going to be taken off the board. DM says the explosion takes out 2 of the bugbears, but the cracks in the ceiling rupture and flood the cave. Everyone roll strength or be swept away in the rushing water. That's when the wizard player broke down. This was enough to send him into a full-blown episode. He threw himself on the floor, smacking himself in the face and ripping his hair, all while screaming, "That's not the puzzle!" over and over. He kicked the table over in his distress and the pieces flew everywhere, setting off a second player who had a huge panic attack seeing his game be ruined. The couriers had to step in and escort them all out to calm down, ending the session there. I then get a very tense phone call from their home manager explaining what had transpired. I was horrified. How could someone who knows these guys and who knows what their needs are possibly think that messing with their game be anything other than a colossal disaster? The home they live in are now considering finding a new day center for them to go to. The idiot DM has been suspended pending an internal review. Thank God, I can't stress enough how badly he dropped the ball there. My relationship with these people has been damaged in the process. It's going to take a lot of work on my part to repair it, and I'm furious with myself as much as anything else for thinking I could trust someone else. Thankfully, the home allowed me to visit them and apologize, and they all accepted. Which, believe me, unlike neurotypical people, they would not accept an apology unless they really meant it. These guys are honest and blunt to a fault. TLDR, idiot substitute DM tries to force his way of playing onto players with autism and results in 2 of them having serious breakdowns. Anywho, it looks like my time here is up. If you like it, please let me know. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. It helps out a lot. And if you want to see who's next on the Disney roster, follow me on Instagram at LEXIE_art2018. If you have any comments about it, please, again, tell me on Instagram. I'd be more than happy to hear your thoughts. Anywho, my time here is up. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!